Hey everybody, Wizards of the Coast released a MTG Arena State of the Game article for November, and I thought we would run through it and talk about it. We have first up is the performance check-in. No big news there other than that they're aware that performance has been rough for people and they're continuing to work on that problem. There's some notes on that, but I honestly don't care. Just keep working on that problem, Wizards. I don't care about the details. You figure it out. Let's get to the meat of the player experience beyond performance, though. The first thing they announced is social features, friends list. I predicted that social features would be the next major effort from them. It's been industry pretty clear in the industry that having a social engagement, basically playing a free-to-play game with friends, playing a game as content, game as service, game, you get much more engagement if people have friends that they find online and make online or hook up with online. And so the friends list is really just going to be a better execution of what they've got now. Like right now you can challenge somebody by name, but you can't have a list of people you know. So basically it's pretty simple. Friend list that now is gonna you'll be able to add friends to your friend list and then challenge them directly in that interface, including a deck sharing. That's interesting, so that you can share a deck with some. I don't know if they mean share a deck with somebody and they don't even have the cards, or just easily share deck lists. Either one would be welcome. It'd be nice to be able to quickly share deck lists within the client. That's the kind of tool that Jay and I should be able to make good use of. I'd like to start playing against Jay on Fridays with friend request and friend challenge. So we'll try that once we get going on that new update. And I think they're saying it's kind of friend features part 1, right? That's not a very deep feature, but it's the starting point. And eventually they want to get to having chat and stuff in game, in client as well. But certainly just being able to see which of your friends are online and challenge them to standard stuff, or not standard, challenge them to constructed is a welcome addition. They are talking about what is Arena besides basically a standard vehicle and a draft vehicle, right? A limited vehicle. They are... Let's see, I'll just read their goals. They say MTG Arena is a gateway to Magic. We want MTG Arena to be the definitive way for new and old players alike to jump into MTG whenever they want. Delving into Magic history, we want to bring more of Magic's history into MTG Arena through historic and set remasters. We'll talk about that in a moment. A curated experience. MTG Arena should provide easy onboarding. I don't know if they're doing that yet. Great matchmaking. And varied experiences each day, week, and set. Well, I just drafted a mill deck and faced literally 7 mill decks, so didn't have a varied experience today, Wizards, but keep working on that. A digital frontier. MTG Arena is a new way to experiment with Magic and expand its possibilities, especially in the digital space. Agree with that. There's a lot of room to play around in digital Magic that, frankly, Magic Online didn't have the stability to support. A lot of my time at Wizards was spent working on Magic Online, but the appetite for change, the appetite for trying something new on Magic Online was almost non-existent because it was always so risky in terms of disrupting the code base, and you're kind of playing with a Jenga tower when you're messing around with features on Magic Online, but they should be able to explore the digital frontier a lot better on Arena. So let's see what they're talking about. Event curation. So this is an interesting one. So they get into a little detail on each of those bullet points. As far as event curation goes, they say at a high level, this all means that MTG Arena will feel more like your local game store, running a variety of organized events throughout the week. MTG Arena is a lifestyle game, not just a sometimes activity for most of our players. It's our responsibility to ensure that there are great new experiences every time you play. Otherwise, things would quickly become stale. We also completely understand the desire for more on-demand play so you can play formats other than what's currently being offered. That's why we are also continuing to expand direct challenge options and add additional social features beyond the friend list. Okay, so what they're saying, so there's a, like, this is a subtle, not so subtle response to the player community's disappointment that currently Brawl is only available on Wednesdays. And I don't get this decision. I'm trying to understand why. So this is confusing to me. They want it to be like a local game store, but at the same time, they're trying to take advantage of the digital nature to take advantage of digital design space. Taking advantage of digital design space would be not limiting things to one time, once per week, like a game store has to. It would be to offer it more often. When I think about reasons why game developers would decide not to make options that players want for play available, the number one reason that comes to mind is queue health. Fire rate is king, and you really want people to not wait in the pairing queues for very long at all. So if you offer the more queues you add, the more you're diluting your player base that's in any given event, and the more wait time you're adding to actual play. And so on the fact that they're shy about expanding the number of queues available at any given time makes me think maybe it's not, maybe the population isn't growing as fast as they want, and they have to be really conservative about queue times. But what I don't get is, it sounds like they're going to restrict things like Brawl or things like special modes of play to either pay to enter this thing on this one day or challenge your friend directly. But there's no way for me to pair up casually against a rando, right? And I think that's a mistake. I think you want to... I can get behind saying, look, competitive Brawl only happens on Wednesdays. Like, if you want to pay gems or gold and try to play an event and win some prizes, that only happens Wednesday night. That's like your game store, right? But I can't get behind not letting me pair casually with someone I don't know. It seems really bad that if I want to play Brawl off cycle, I have to actually find a friend who's available and plan that. That seems awkward when you could really just give me a place to pair casually. So maybe the situation with queue health is such that they really just don't want to do that, but it really surprises me. I don't blame them for wanting to make paid events special, but it's really crazy to me to not let me pair casually against a rando. So we'll see if they change that. I think players are going to push pretty hard on that. I want to play my way when I want to play it. And as long as you can pair against randoms, then I really don't care about when they charge for events, but it seems weird to not offer 24/7 casual random pairings. Now let's talk about remastered sets. That's exciting. Remastered sets. Later next year, we plan to begin adding remastered versions of older sets to Magic the Gathering Arena. The MTG Arena team, in conjunction with Magic R&D, will be looking at multiple sets and considering condensing them into a single larger set that only includes the most relevant cards and adding that to the game. This will allow us to focus on what made these sets fun and exciting for players while delivering on the content much more quickly. So this is a long-term commitment that will eventually lead to additional format support beyond standard and historic. Pioneer is one of the formats that we're working towards, but it'll be a longer journey before we can talk specifics. So we've done this, I say we, from a mentality of being former WotC. Wizards has done this once before. When I was at Wizards on Magic Online, I was part of the team that created Tempest Remastered. And the idea of that is we took all 3 Tempest sets from the Tempest block, and we condensed them down, basically cut 2/3 of those cards, condensed them down to a much better and much more modernized limited experience. So it was a cool experiment. I think it was successful in terms of the goal of taking Tempest and making it a better digital experience while focusing on the core cards that people really wanted for their collections. Sounds like they're basically taking that philosophy to Arena, and it's a great way to introduce old sets more quickly and more important, and the most important cards very quickly. So I like the remastered set idea as a way to monetize the injection of older cards onto Arena without making the pace of the introduction of those cards super slow. So we'll see what happens when they get to that. Now, this is an interesting change, an interesting announcement. Historic. We want to leverage MTG Arena's digital strengths to create a format that can adapt more quickly to what's going on in-game. Historic is our first take on this, aimed at our more experienced players, and we want to seriously explore the idea of a living format that changes as it's played. I don't know what that means beyond how Magic is already a living format that changes as it's played. I don't know if they just mean that they're going to add or take away cards with more frequency. So I'd like some more details on what they mean by a living format that changes as it's played. That's not very clear to me, because there's an inherent amount of that in Magic in itself. They say this truly begins with the November game update, when we will be adding 20 new cards to MTG Arena for Historic play. This will come alongside a best of 1 Historic launch event and a best of 3 ranked queue. There is enough to cover with Historic that it warranted its own article, so maybe I'll open this and we'll go take a look at that second article after I run through this one. Experimental events, just saying they're going to keep experimenting with wacky stuff like Omniscience Draft and Double Life, Brewer's Delight, etc., and see what sticks. Keep the stuff that people like and ditch the stuff people don't. No big surprises there. Digital Frontier, they're basically saying, keep giving feedback, etc. So this Friends List and Historic Anthology 1 will be arriving on November 21st alongside some quality of life changes, bug fixes, and continued work on perf. Yep. Okay, so November 21st is when this all hits. And looking forward to adding my first friend. That'll be cool. So let's take a look at the Historic rollout. This time I'm actually going to switch my view to the left monitor so you can see, because there's some visual stuff here that I think will make talking about this better. Also, if you're chatting at me, I haven't been able to look at chat or anything. I'll check in with chat at the end of my spiel here. But let's go to left monitor. And this is fine. Okay, so they're talking about what they're going to do with Historic. And so 20 new cards entering, new card drops planned every quarter. Ranked Historic Best of 3 queue, November 21st. So Historic Best of 3 queue ranked it looks like they're going to inject this sometimes, but not all the time. Historic Best of 3 tournament at the end of the ranked season. Putting tournaments on is a nice way to legitimize your eternal format here. Competitive Evergreen Historic event starting in January. We'll see what that means. But okay, they're trying to give Historic its boost that it needs to be kind of a real boy. I want to get into, this is all... Let's get to this last paragraph. Being purely digital, we can curate Historic much more actively than is practical for physical Magic. Are there not enough viable archetypes? We might drop a card or two to create new options. Is something dominating the format more than is healthy? Then we'll step in to address it. That might be a full ban, as players are familiar with, or it might be a suspension where we pull a card from Historic temporarily to see how things change. We can respond quickly to how the format develops, giving us the freedom to push boundaries. Yeah, they do have more freedom because the consequence of having your rare or mythic banned on Arena is just, it's a different feel from paper. If you spend $60 on an Oko, it gets banned, and now it's worth $30, you feel badly, but you can get away with that more on digital since you can give back wild cards to apologize, and since it's got a flat cost, it doesn't feel quite like the kick in the gut that getting your expensive mythic banned in paper does. Actually, if we have, let's see, sponsored. Here, the chat box back. Now we'll actually see chat here too. This is really interesting though. Okay, I wanted to get to this. Historic Anthology 1. First of all, Historic Anthology 1 will be available with this update. These 20 cards can all be crafted using wildcards at a 1-to-1 rate, or you can purchase a complete playset of every card, 80 cards in total, in the store for 3,400 gems. So we'll take a look at the cards they're offering. Off the top of my head, we need to see the rarity and stuff involved here, but basically, I mean, if we talk, the thing about rarity when it's a fixed contents. When a product has fixed contents, like Historic Anthology 1, rarity becomes a bit fuzzy in paper because they're all the same rarity. They're all in the box. They're all in every box. In this case, rarity matters a little bit because what wild cards it's going to take matters about what rarity they put on it, but still you're in a spot where for 3,400 gems, so we get 3,400 gems divided by 80 cards. So it's 42.5 gems per card. And again, it depends on how you value these things. But just doing the straight math on gems per card total. What's weird to me though is that because of this, like fixed card products are something Wizards generally tries to avoid because of the weirdness. I mean, Commander is an exception, but like mostly Wizards wants to sell you stuff through randomized boosters, and I think the set remastering is an example of that. You know, let's remaster sets down to its essence of good cards and then resell that as randomized boosters. It's a little weird to sell something not in the Commander space that's like, it's weird to sell something that's not a deck, I guess is what I'm saying. Most of the fixed contents products are either a handful of cards and like a special collector's edition, like the From the Vault stuff, but usually it's an actual playable deck if they're going to do a fixed product. So it's a little unusual, and because it starts to smack of Wizards being in the secondary market, right? If you're putting a price tag on fixed items, you're kind of selling singles at some level. So it's a little bit weird that Wizards is selling singles here, but they're also trying to, what do? You're trying to support Historic. I think it makes sense digitally, and it makes sense for the Historic format. Just thought it was worth mentioning that it's a non-goal to distribute cards in ways other than the randomized booster. So let's see. Yeah, I don't need to know much about the events. I think they're gonna make the events what they are. I don't even care right now. What I want to see is what their thinking was and what the cards they chose were. So, because 20 slots is not a lot of slots. Ultimately, with only a handful of slots to fill, we needed to narrow things down. These cards would have several core goals to fulfill. In order to separate Historic from just being old Standard plus Throne, we look for cards that could drive decks that wouldn't otherwise exist in the format. I think that's important. I don't know if they'll get to this in the later bullet points, but also I think it's important that the cards they're adding to drive decks that wouldn't otherwise exist should be driving decks that aren't staples in Modern, right? I think that you also want to... Historic needs to distance itself from Standard, but it also needs to distance itself from Modern. And I think making sure you're picking cards that aren't Modern staples, but could drive something in Historic is an important gap to hit. We wanted some new tools for players who play competitively, and so cards that had performed well in past Standard formats or even showed up in Modern and beyond were often part of the conversation. Showing up in Modern is one thing, but you don't want to do like... you're not going to introduce Noble Hierarch to Arena. I think that would be a bad idea, for example. Like, you don't want to do Snapcaster Mage or just some of the staples from Modern that are so like, that's a killer Modern card. Like, I think if you're talking about Insano Modern cards, you're going too far here. It was important to demonstrate the range of cards that live in Historic, and so we even looked at cards that are popular for cubes and Commander, a format with a very long reach. Yeah, that's cool too. Going older than Modern to further demonstrate the difference. But again, you want to create that separation. How is this not just baby Modern, right? We considered limiting ourselves to cards that are legal in Modern or Pioneer, but at the end of the day, Historic isn't intended to be either of those. There you go. A smattering of legal cards that doesn't suddenly make a full format, and we'd rather let Historic stand on its own terms, not as an incomplete version of something else. I mean, I didn't even mention it needing to separate itself from Pioneer. So I love the idea of going back to cards that aren't even legal in Pioneer or Modern to bring into Historic to really make it feel different. So that's a good call as well, Wizards. Now let's take a look here. All right, I'm gonna hide chat again so we can. That's right. I'll leave chat up. We can talk about what's behind on here. All right, so let's run through here. Serra Ascendant is a single white for a 1/1 lifelink. As long as you have 30 or more life, Serra Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. Soul Warden is a 1/1 for a single white that says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. Hey, there you go. That's they're putting a little combo, pointing to some life gain combo potential there. Then we have Kinsbale Cavalier, 3 and a white for a 2/2. Night creatures you control have double strike, so it looks like they're trying to support a night build around deck. I don't know if a 4-mana 2/2 is good enough for an Eternal format, though. It feels like that's a kind of a casual card. I don't know. We'll see. I just don't think that's a very high impact card because of its cost in a bigger than standard type format. Yeah, it could be a commander card. That's a reasonable call. Treasure Hunt, another weird one. Don't know what this is about exactly. Treasure Hunt is 1 and a blue. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. Then put all cards revealed this way into your hand. Maybe they're looking for to support a heavy land Field of the Dead type deck. Treasure Hunt was never played that heavily, even when it was in Standard, I thought. So I'm a little surprised to see that one. But maybe it'll do something that I'm not thinking about. Distant Melody, 3 and a blue. Choose a sorcery, choose a creature type, draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. Again, I'm a little baffled by that one. 4-mana sorcery speed card draw. That's maybe it's a more casual card, but I kind of expected a little kind of spikier cards from this list, honestly. And I don't know if Distant Melody is that much better than a lot of the card draw currently available. I mean, it depends. Obviously, the ceiling on Distant Melody is insane, but I don't know if it's doing something incredible, you know. Crypt Breaker is a single black for a 1/1 zombie, and it has an activated ability, 1 and a black, tap, discard a card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, tap 3 untapped zombies you control, you draw a card, and you lose 1 life. Sure, that's a little zombie plant there. Zombie build around. Looks like there's some elf tribal down here, so it looks like they're doing some kind of tribal additions. Hypnotic Spectre, classic. I mean, it is modern legal, but it feels very old school. We all know hippie, right? 1 black for a 2/2 flying, and when it connects for combat damage, the damaged player discards a card at random. Ouch. The classic early days play was Dark Ritual into Hypnotic Spectre on turn 1. Meanwhile, Phyrexian Arena, given black control some juice here with a 1 black enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep you draw a card and you lose 1 life. That's a powerful card draw engine for black and has certainly had its role in Standard, and I don't know if we've seen much modern play, but it's definitely a cube card. Maybe this could be another commander style card. Tendrils of Corruption is a mono black reward card, basically. Tendrils of Corruption deals X damage to target creature, and you gain X life, where X is the number of swamps you control. So that's a 4-mana instant. Obviously, you just want to be kind of full swamps for that one. Don't know. I don't know how they're coming up with these, honestly. Like, that's another weird one to me. It just doesn't seem like... I really expected these to be more Crypt Breaker-like. And Cavalier-like, just obvious build-arounds. There's been a lot of stuff that's like, why hippie? Are we really playing? I don't know. Just expected more build-arounds than I'm seeing so far. Kiln Fiend's a build-around, though. Kiln Fiend is 1 and a red for a 1/2. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Kiln Fiend gets +3/+0 until end of turn. So making this unblockable and casting... This seems like it'll work well with jumpstart cards, casting two jumpstart, the make it fly, make it haste, and do it twice in the same turn. So some quick kills with Kiln Fiend are possible. Goblin Matron looks like it's supporting a Goblin tribal. Old school card, 2 and a red for a 1/1, and when ETBs, you get to search your library for a Goblin card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So Goblin Tutor, very nice for build-arounds on the Goblin front. I don't know how to pronounce this name. Hidetsugu's Second Right. We'll just call it Second Right. 3 and a red for an instant. If target player has exactly 10 life, Second Right deals 10 damage to that player. So that's fun. That's a fun build around. People have some fun with that. Try to get them to play a lot of cards that manage life total exactly and then get them. That's a fun build around. Elvish Visionary, 1/1 for 1 and a green. ETB draw card. Elf, classic. Elf support card. Fauna Shaman, this is an interesting enabler. 1 and a green for a 2/2 for an Elf Shaman, and it has a pay a green, tap, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is a survival of the fittest on a creature, and it's a really powerful tutor effect, and can really make some decks where you kind of need 8 copies of your key creature. This kind of becomes copies 5 through 8. And it's also nice to pitch things like mana elves that have lost their usefulness to go find something much better. Imperious Perfect, the classic elf build-around card. We have a 2/2 for 2 and a green. It's an elf warrior, and it says other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. So we have ourselves an elf lord. And you can tap, pay green, and you create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So must kill. If your opponent leaves your perfect around, you're gonna be running away with that game. Burning Tree Emissary is red-green hybrid, 2 red-green hybrid for a 2/2, and when it ETBs, you add red-green. So the kind of the living the dream with Burning Tree Emissary is you have 4 of them in your opener and a sweet 2-drop, and on turn 2 you go boom, 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 and then follow with your 2-drop. I mean, that's the dream. I've never done that, but Emissary can really add to an aggressive Gruul deck, because it's basically a free spell on 2, a free 2/2 creature if you can have something else to do with that mana. Yeah, and so far we haven't seen any mythics, right? Is Captain Sisay a mythic? Is Darksteel Reactor a mythic? I can't quite tell. It looks like maybe they're all rares, or rare at most, which is nice for the wild card conversion stuff. Captain Sisay says 2/2 for 2 green white and legendary creature. So when I see legendary, immediately it's like, hey, it's a new commander option for Brawl. Assuming they do historic Brawl. I didn't see if they mentioned that in the article, but it'd be weird for them not to just have an historic Brawl. We'll see if they do that. It makes total sense to me. Why wouldn't you? I guess Q health again, but Ornithopter, classic Ornithopter, 0 mana, 0/2 artifact flyer. I don't know what kind of support there is for the aggro artifact deck, but there certainly are some artifact build arounds, so maybe that goes in some Karn decks or something like that. Yeah, so Captain Sisay makes so much sense for Commander, but we don't have Commander on Arena. We have Brawl, and Brawl is standard, and Sisay isn't legal in standard. So it seems weird to bring Captain Sisay in if you're not going to make an historic Brawl format. We'll see if they do that. Mind Stone, further helping with some artifacts. Mind Stone is another classic, great mana rock. 2 mana, you get to have another source of mana, but you can also sacrifice it later to draw a card, so that's great. Darksteel Reactor, 4 mana indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on Darksteel Reactor. When Darksteel Reactor has 20 or more charge counters on it, you win the game. So Darksteel Reactor plus Proliferate is going to be the build around plant here, I imagine. And yeah, players like alternate win conditions. So it's kind of a motley mix of stuff here. And I wish I had been in the meetings where they distilled it down to these choices, because they kind of smack as a bit odd to me. But they get to do this every quarter, mix things up. some of it's odd to me, but some of it makes total sense. All the stuff that's built around makes total sense, but when I see something like Treasure Hunt, I wonder what they were going for. And again, like seeing things like Cavalier, which has a clear build around but doesn't feel good enough for an Eternal format, you know, extended, a standard plus type format. We'll see. But interesting that they took it to heart. Like they had been talking about releasing things like a Worm Coil engine, which those of you who don't know, Worm Coil engine, it's a 6/6 lifelink death touch for 6. And when it dies, you make a 3/3 lifelinker and a 3/3 death toucher. So it's and as a colorless card, people pointed out if you put that in, it just makes every other 6-mana finisher moot. You just start doing that, right? And so they got to be careful not to introduce things that are so good that they just blank a bunch of other options. So it looks like they figured that out and didn't do that kind of thing, but still some weird ones here, some good ones here. We'll see what the community does with it. But I appreciate what they're doing here with this format. It's an interesting digital experiment, and I wish them the best for it, and I'm going to try and figure that out. It looks like here's some old school historic options, some deck lists you can try. I'm not going to get into the decks here, but you can go explore them yourself to see some of the ideas they had. And I'm going to move back to Soapbox here, and I think that's about it. Like, the real question here is getting 4x of these worth 3,400 gems to you. I don't think it's going to be worth it to me. Not with how I'm playing. I'm content to make my main account be about primarily getting as much limited as I can, and secondarily having some fun in standard. But I'm not going to use my resources on the free-to-play account to get into historic. But maybe we'll do it on the paid account. And Nantuko, let me get to that in a second. Shateri doesn't think Mind Stone is good enough by itself. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, control decks curving out to a 4-drop on 3 can be very powerful for what they're trying to do. Do you think the remastered sets will be draftable? Absolutely. Absolutely is part of the point of the remastering, is to distill it down to the most powerful cards for constructed, but also to craft the experience for limited as well. Definitely. Frequent curation is an odd tension to put on your Eternal format. Exactly, Hat, but I think they can get away with it in digital space. Like I was saying earlier, the customer happiness penalty for mucking around with legality in your digital game, especially when you give people wildcards when you take something away from them, is not going to be as frustrating and agonizing as it is for people to have really valuable cards become valueless immediately because of Wizards' decisions. So I get what you're saying, Hat, but if they're going to do a frequent curation type of situation, this is the place for it. So we'll see if they do a good job with it. But I think that's all I got on this for now. I'm going to throw this up on YouTube and people can hear my thoughts on it. Maybe take a little more AMA here, but for now I'm going to say goodbye to YouTubers. Thanks for hanging out and listening. We'll catch you next time.